And so as a kid, I'd like put some powder into the toilet and wait for my parents to go to the toilet, and then the bowl would start glowing blue.
Jeez.
It's pretty hard considering someone just like accidentally killed 3 members of their family trying to feed them wild mushrooms.
Welcome to the Big Small Podcast, where we speak to adventurers, advocates, and authorities in nature, and we talk about the small things in life's big picture. I'm your host, Jaden Lunt, and in today's episode, I'm speaking to a student veterinarian who is also the host of the Death by Birding podcast. I would say he is a well-dressed birder. He is passionate about wildlife and also including everyone in the fun. Please welcome to the show, Cesar Pushmarin. You've got your podcast.
Yes.
Birds. You love birds. You love frogs. How did you start liking? Why did you start liking something that flies and something that jumps instead of something that runs and something that?
Yeah. Look, to be honest, I don't like those two more than anything else. Man. Like, I know it seems odd because I've got this podcast about birds and I've had this video thing about frogs, but I love all animals, like all nature, all wildlife. I love fungi. I like even probably like bacteria. Like I just love all manner of nature. Those are just two of the things that I got attracted to. That sort of took my attention enough for me to create something around them. So,
yeah, right.
I only found frogs while I was doing like mushroom stuff. So I was
just the study or the use of.
No, not the use of the mushrooms. Yeah, which is funny because I had this video production company for a little while called Blue Shroom Studios, and I never meant it to have like magic mushroom connotations, but I think like half of the viewers of the videos thought that they were watching some tutorial on like how to collect magic mushrooms. Yeah, and they were sorely disappointed when it was about like conservation of powerful owls and stuff. But yeah, so it's kind of weird. I do think that fungi was the thing that started that process in a really weird roundabout way.
Yeah, right.
But one of my uncles is a mycologist, so he like studies fungi and mushrooms, and when we'd hang out, we'd always go out and do forays. So we'd like collect fungi, we'd wait for it to rain, then we'd go out and he'd collect them and then he'd categorize them and do all that sort of thing. And
that sounds like a lot of effort. Like, I don't know fungi, but it looks like there's a lot of species.
It's pretty hard considering someone just like accidentally killed 3 members of their family trying to feed them wild mushrooms. Like, it's hard.
No, wait, like recent?
Yeah,
Dead
man.
set?
Oh, yeah, and down south in Victoria. I think in Victoria. And I think it just goes to show that you can have, you know, a field of edible mushrooms, and there could be one, what they call like death caps, Amanita phalloides. It could be one in that whole patch, and it'll just kill everyone. Like, it's really, really dangerous. And so that, not for that reason, but just going out and looking for fungi and looking at the small things, and you know, with my uncle, I've got all these really nice memories of doing that as a kid.
Oh yeah.
Of like going out after it's rained overnight, and the ground's just covered in mushrooms, and the different colors and shapes, and that just really excited me as, you know, probably a 9 or 10-year-old, maybe even younger. And so when it came time, when I was, you know, in my early 20s and I was starting to find that passion for nature again, I immediately went to mushrooms. I was like, well, I kind of know how to do that already. So I went and did that for a bit, and I joined the Queensland Mycological Society. I went out like collecting fungi to submit for science and that sort of thing. And
you're really into your shrooms.
Yeah, I still do. Like, I love fungi.
Yeah.
But in that process, I started finding frogs, and then those took over for a little bit, and then it just kind of took off. And look, this is slightly tangential, but I kind of get very bored of origin stories with people when you talk to people about like why nature, why, and it's always like ever since I was a child I
saw a skink.
Yeah, and I think
I caught the skink.
I think you'll find doing this podcast that you're gonna hear that a lot.
Yeah,
it's like ever since I was a little kid, and it's kind of like, yeah, I did have that connection when I was a kid, but really it was like finding it again as an adult. I think is more exciting, and that's kind of where there was a big gap in my, you know, my adolescence and my early adult life where I liked nature. I'd watch documentaries still, and it just wasn't my thing. And it wasn't until, I think a lot of young people start trying to find themselves again. You go through this
Yeah.
dark period, this
Yeah.
shadowy period.
Yeah,
You kind
right.
of don't
You
know
went
who
through
you
that.
are.
That was fun. I loved that part of my life. That was so good.
I think and you're trying to find yourself, trying to find your place in the world,
Yeah.
and then inevitably, for some people, not everyone, but for the lucky ones, you find yourself again. And I think that that's definitely been my journey. And to answer your question in a really roundabout way, why, that's how I found frogs.
Yeah.
And then birds were another thing where it's I always loved birds.
Right.
They're, another part of nature. I always
Yeah.
appreciated them. I loved seeing them, but only passively when I was doing other things. And then it wasn't until, I think it was in a lecture at uni. And it was a lecture on birds. And I was big into herping at this time.
Right.
I'd really entered it's kind of like the the progression of nature was fungi, frogs, snakes, and reptiles, and then birds.
And then birds, right.
And then at some point, mammals, I suppose.
Those two.
And it was when they described birds as reptiles. Well, birds are phylogenetically, taxonomically, they're reptiles. And I was like, oh, birds are cool now.
Yeah.
I was now that I consider them to be reptiles. Endothermic. I don't know how big your words you want to use on this. It's going to be pretty boring, maybe dry chat. But yeah, they're endothermic reptiles in a way.
Yeah.
That might be a controversial thing to say. But it seems very likely that they are within... If all the other reptiles are reptiles, then birds have to be reptiles as well in order to fit into that landscape.
Right.
And that's what first kind of triggered it for me. I was like, oh, I like reptiles.
Yeah, so the birds, reptiles, taxonomically speaking, to you it looks like they're part of the same.
Well, I think that if if reptilia is going to be monophyletic, if reptilia is going to be a complete group, you have to include birds.
Right.
I think the moment reptilia is just a term that describes reptiles that are
Scaled
ectothermic.
Yeah.
That are ectothermic and lay eggs. Whereas we've got serious DNA evidence to show that crocodiles and turtles are more closely related to birds than they are to lizards and snakes, to squamates.
Right.
So at some point...
They don't look similar.
They don't look
but
similar.
genetically you're saying they're closer.
Yeah, much closer.
Interesting.
So even though they've got the similar body plan to each other, snakes maybe not, but lizards.
They have a shell? No.
Lizards, crocodiles, and turtles, they have that sort of splayed body plan, right? Which birds obviously don't have. But birds are theropod dinosaurs, and they split from turtles and crocodiles much later than that whole group split from. I don't know if that's too dry. It's probably pretty boring.
Yeah,
but that's
no,
kind of
okay.
And so
that's why you
that was the initial spark for me to go oh, this is interesting. And what I love about birds is that they all have the same features. They all have beaks. They all have feathers. They all lay eggs. They fit this basic body plan, but it's everywhere from a tiny superb fairy wren to an emu or an albatross or a flamingo or a penguin. They've taken this basic body plan and these basic features, and it's just gone into every habitat, every environment you can imagine, every single size you can imagine. And I just think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I like to reduce it into a list that I can tick in a book.
Yeah, right. So do you have one of those books that you go through and you tick the species off? Are you one of those birders?
I have an Excel spreadsheet.
You have an Excel spreadsheet.
Even nerdier. Yeah, man.
Damn. Do you have pictures or just words and names?
On the Excel spreadsheet, just names.
No way.
Just
that would be so hard for me, man. I need pictures.
Yeah, you got field guides.
Yeah.
Yeah, use field guides. Field guides are great. Digital field guides, books. I think that's a great way to start people on birds as well. And all wildlife, all nature, just field guides. You grew up around southeast Queensland. Did you have the Wildlife of Greater Brisbane book? That I think Does it have a sugar glider on it? The new one might. Yeah, when I was a kid, it had a tawny frog mouth on the front, and it was wildlife.
I missed out on that one.
It's like a black background, and it just says Wildlife of Greater Brisbane. And I would just flick through that book, and it would be, it's surface level stuff. It doesn't have every single animal in southeast Queensland or Greater Brisbane, but there's a lot in there,
Mm.
and it's awesome, you know. And I remember flicking through that. So like field guides, books, pictures, they're
Yeah.
great. Good way to get kids involved.
Yeah, that's true. Because pictures, I mean, I'm not look. Pictures are just really good. I like color.
Yeah.
Reading is really hard. When I have to read a book's not one of my strong points. When it has no color pictures,
Yeah.
it's like the content really has to be good to keep
Yeah.
me in there. Like I really have to be intrigued.
What about ones that you color in yourself? Are they good too?
those one? Yeah, actually,
love those.
they do, because that means I can remember them, and I have actually got, I think, 1 or 2 of them that I need to do still.
But you're a herper, right? So you have to remember a bunch of scientific names that
Not-
most birders don't.
Oh, look, not really. I mean, every species I catch and have caught, there's all common names for them.
Yeah.
The scientific name realm, I'm yet to really get into that, because
Yeah.
that just, look, it doesn't interest me
Yeah.
completely. I like understanding the general, and then only for certain species will I go down a rabbit hole with.
Sure.
But I like the interaction at that moment when you see the animal,
Yeah.
and then when you catch the animal.
Sure.
That's what really interests me, and
Yeah.
still will I learn, yes, about the scientific names, yeah, but not one of my strong points. No.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a process, and you don't learn them all at once, right?
No,
Like, no one could do that.
No, it's actually crazy how many there are.
But I do think that the benefit, I think with birds, a lot of the common names are sort of
Different
prescribed,
enough. Right?
so that if it's a little kingfisher, it's going to be a little kingfisher, and globally they all have their prescribed common name. Reptiles and frogs don't.
Right.
And so I really learnt that the hard way when I started off, was that in order to, like, for example, orange-eyed tree frogs, Latoria chloris, can also be red-eyed tree frogs.
Yeah,
And
right.
then there were so many frogs that would have the same scientific name, same species, but then like sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 different common names. And that was a nightmare. And you're like,
That's-
what frog is this? Is it a banjo frog or is it a scarlet-sided pobblebonk? They're both Limnodynastes pterygiinae. It's that was for me. I was like, especially for frogs, I'm gonna have to learn the scientific names.
Right.
Whereas with
Definitely.
birds, like I've never had to do that. I know the owls, but that's it.
Yeah, well, and you also have got that YouTube channel, Pobblebonks and Cundagungans.
Yeah.
Cundagunions.
Yeah. Surprisingly, yeah. I do. Yeah. I loved that idea. I loved the idea of going out with one of my best friends, Daniel, who's also my brother-in-law.
Right.
And we really had a very similar journey with nature and wildlife, and kind of came back to it at the same time. And I think I walked into his room. I was like, "Hey man, do you want to go look for frogs?" I think I was probably 22 or something. He was probably like 20,
Yeah.
and he was like sitting playing video games. And I just was like, "Hey man, do you want to come look for frogs with me?" Because I'd had this spark. I was like, "I really want to start doing this." And it was the middle of the day, and we went to the Kedron Brook. Of course, like knowing what we know now, we were never going to find any frogs.
No.
It's like the middle of the day on like a dry day, and I think we found a bunch of cane toad. We still had to ID though. We're like, what are they? Little baby cane toads. But that was like the spark.
Yeah,
And then-
right. Cane toads.
Yeah. Which well, eventually, we started finding other stuff. You get hints, and you're like, oh, it's raining. Apparently, frogs like water, so maybe we'll try now. And realizing that they're all nocturnal, and so we pursued that. And eventually, we decided to just start filming our adventures. We went out and we're like, let's make a YouTube series about finding frogs. And the idea was we're going to find every single frog in southeast Queensland, as per the field guide.
And how's that going?
I think we are. Maybe people who watch the series could correct me. I think we're like 40 out of 60 species. But it's been going for a long time. We only see each other like once or twice a year now.
Yeah, dead set.
So it's really hard.
Growing up, yeah.
It's tough, man. Yeah, so we've been doing it for ages, and it certainly hasn't ended. The project hasn't ended. But now the species that we're yet to film are starting to be like, we used to try and tick a whole bunch in one episode. So we could go out and target a bunch.
Yeah, seen a couple of those, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but it got to like our third trip out west, and we still had like 2 or 3 species to find out there. It's like, we're going to have to come back, like do another 5-hour drive to go find these few frogs when it's good weather, and we need to find a time when we're both available, and
Yeah.
it's been raining and doing all this stuff, and so it has become more difficult. But the plan is to hopefully finish it. Pobblebonks and Kundagungans.
Yeah.
I really made it a YouTube series that only people who know frogs like. It was a terrible name.
What? Why Pobblebonks? Because that's a mouthful, and then you got Kundagungans.
Yeah, I did really want to make the nichest frog YouTube series, which I think that frog
think you may
YouTube
have
series is
succeeded.
already niche enough.
Yeah.
But I think that frog names are funny. Like I've just got a weird sense of humor. I was like, oh, these are two very funny sounding frog names, and it's like Pobblebonks and Kundagungans. And so Pobblebonk is the type of frog, and then Kundagungan, which is Phaloria Kundagungan, or the Kundagungan mountain frog, which is a beautiful frog. I love that frog. It's got this coppery red back. This variation has this coppery brown red back and then a yellow belly.
Yeah.
It's just really pretty. And Pobblebonks are cool, and they've got a funny name. So that was it.
Yeah, right on. I don't think I've ever seen a Pobblebonk that I can remember.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple, but
they generally do it like Froggy style. Is that what you mean?
No,
Oh, you
I've never seen.
So-
Like I've
you've never seen the
actually
frog,
seen
okay.
the frog. Let me give you a 3D representation. Yeah, just the species.
Oh, right. Sorry, you said I couldn't. I've never seen a Pobblebonk. The one word.
No. I can see how that can happen.
Yeah, sorry for the misunderstanding. You've said this is a clean podcast.
Hey, look, that's pretty clean. That's pretty clean. It was pretty self-explanatory. So birds, frogs, right on. You also corrected me when we
please.
first started.
Go on.
Was you're in your 4th year of veterinary studies, and it's been a decade of yourself being within the veterinary field.
Yeah.
What were you doing? Were you doing another wildlife job career planned out initially? You stumbled into this, or you're like, nah, stuff frogs and birds. I'm gonna work on mammals and reptiles.
No, yeah. This is pretty dry, but basically, I'm in my 2nd year of 4th year vet. So I did 4th year part time. So technically, I've done 5 years of vet school. I will graduate in about a year as a fully qualified veterinarian.
Yes,
as long as I don't muck it up along the way.
Yeah, you don't misjudge something.
In that process, I also had to do, like a year of science. So I'd already. Oh.
Did you put your foot underneath?
Yeah, this is a slapstick podcast. Ready? Is this okay?
Yeah, yes. You've got more height that you
I'm
can
gonna
use if
start
you
that
want
again.
Okay,
I feel like a Steve Martin movie.
I now know that I need to warn people. I've done that before. I'll be playing guitar, and then my heel will get it, and then I can't throw the guitar. It's like made by my ALPA. I can't just throw that away, and then my heel's stuck in there, and I'm just like,
yeah. At least I was just telling you like a pretty boring story. It'd be worse if I was like, yeah, and that's when I sobered up from heroin addiction. I just imagine being there and being like, yeah, so after my parents both died and my heroin addiction had come back.
It's like as the voice quivers. People on audio are like, is he crying? I can't tell.
No,
he just fell down like a proper head below the mic.
I've never told this story before, but I had to sell my body. All right.
Yeah, I think that's full. Yeah, it's full.
Is this okay?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of doing like veterinary science at UQ, and I'll hopefully graduate as a fully qualified veterinarian by next year. But in that process, I've been working in the veterinary industry for 10 years now. Some of that was preparation to get into vet school.
Okay.
I've been working in vet clinics. I've been trying to develop my skills, trying to figure out if I really wanted to do that as well. It's like a big commitment.
It is. You got to work in animals. Like that's
Yeah,
it's a lot of drug knowledge. I mean, you worked on mushrooms anyways to start off with. So
yeah,
you already,
yeah.
You had a slow.
It's complementary
slight
knowledge.
runway.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I initially just started studying science. So when I left school, I did a Bachelor of Music.
Mm.
I liked playing guitar and singing and doing all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So I pursued that for a while.
Oh, cool.
I ended up majoring in production, despite my own podcast sounding awful and having terrible microphones. I definitely did never use that degree. But I did meet some awesome people, and we started a band, and we toured for a little while. We did that full time for a bit, and then, just during that process, I realized that I just didn't love playing music for a living as much as I thought I would.
Right. Okay.
And sort of the bigger the bands got that I played in, the more I kept on. I found that I just kept on justifying it to myself, being like, but when we start playing these kind of shows, I'm going to enjoy it more. Or when we start playing these kind of shows, I'm going to enjoy it more. And it got to the point where we're playing, festival stages and stuff, and I was just hating it. Not because of the music, not because of the people. Like, I loved my band. I basically got to hang out with 3 of my best mates all the time. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It just wasn't my thing. I still love playing music.
Yeah.
I still love writing music. It's just not the career. I didn't feel fulfilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that being a musician isn't a fulfilling thing. For a lot of people it is.
Just
for my own journey,
yourself,
it wasn't it.
Yeah.
And so
That's a lot of commitment. I mean, being working for and playing for people and creating music, and then when you start getting followers and people that want to hear more from you, there's like a pressure there to like keep that up. You can't just be like, nah, I'm done here. It's like, nah, you got to keep going.
It's kind of like starting a bird watching podcast.
Yeah, I was like, I was thinking.
And now all these people want to hear the episodes.
Yeah,
that's cool.
100%.
Totally different thing. I can do that from home. I don't have to tour around Australia.
Yeah, people
and
drive
the
up this
States
hour long thing, as you say, up this mountain, and then have a chat with you.
Yeah, so
birds.
I all that sort of area of self-discovery coincided with me rediscovering, if you were, my love for nature. And although I was, as I said, like I was already in love with nature, I'd still, we went to the States with the band and played some shows over there.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and while we were over there, like we all had a week off at the very end. It was a 5-week stint. And we had a week off at the end, and the whole band went to New York. And then my wife and I, at the time girlfriend, wife and I went to Yosemite National Park, and which is just this beautiful, big national park.
Yeah. I think I've heard of it.
Yeah. It's in California. It's on the West Coast. And it's just spectacular. Like, we just went hiking, and one morning and this is kind of like, interestingly, there were the journey of bird watching and birding was like small little morsels, little bits and pieces that revealed themselves to me, right? And I kind of remember a lot of them. One of them was definitely noticing birds in America, because they were different.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, oh wow,
yeah,
there's a northern cardinal, the bright red with a mohawk, like that bird. And
yeah, do you see a woodpecker?
Not in the States. I saw one later, but I've never seen one in the States. I wish I had. It's another reason to go back, right? And then, going to Yosemite and seeing and basically there are these birds called jays in the States, which you might be aware
blue
of.
jays, like
there's blue jays,
yep.
There's blue jays, there's Stella's jay, which occur at a higher altitude. And I just remember that seeing the blue jays, and then once we got up to Yosemite, which is a much higher altitude, they looked different. Kind of had black heads and then like blue wings and those. And I looked it up, and these are now Stella's jays. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like starting to piece together the distribution of birds. I had no interest in birding.
Right.
Like, I liked nature, but like at such a superficial level.
Yeah.
And
just that guy who's like, yeah, I like nature. And when he goes to the bar, and like the girls are like, oh,
nature, bro. Yeah, I love David Attenborough.
Yeah, he's the best.
Man, that guy rules.
Yeah.
David Attenborough.
Yeah, that sort of guy.
Yeah. Maybe that was me. But I was dealing with a lot of anxiety at the time.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, a lot of it to do with my career and not feeling fulfilled and stuff.
In the music, yeah.
Yeah, and so I wasn't sleeping well. I was getting up very, very early every day. And I got up one morning and I borrowed my wife's camera. She's a professional photographer.
That's
She was
beneficial.
and she still was. And she had this great camera. And so I borrowed a camera one morning. I went out for a walk. Did your phone just vibrate? It's just been in the shot the whole time.
I was just like, what is that even doing?
Doesn't matter.
Did not notice.
For continuity, you should probably leave it.
No, I'll just. Everyone knows now. I
Yeah.
had it on. I'm not gonna hide that. Okay.
And so, yeah, I went out and I borrowed a camera and just went for a walk. Took some photos of the Stellar's jays and then saw some deer rutting. I just like found all these young male deer just rutting. And I like creeped up this hill, probably at risk of getting Lyme's disease, which I didn't know about at the time.
Yeah.
Getting covered in ticks. It was fine. And I just started taking photos of these deer. And I was like, unknowingly, that was my first step into wildlife photography, which ended up like consuming me for quite a while. Yeah, so I was in the process of getting a debilitating form of chronic fatigue through Lyme's disease. No, I didn't get it. But what I did get was some really awesome photos and an addiction to wildlife photography that, has carried me through until now, which I still do a bit, probably a lot less than I used to. I'm much more into just observing nature now than I am photography. But just that trip to, if I'd gone to New York, I don't think that would have ever happened.
No, you would have been interested in rats.
Yeah, and pigeons, which, you never know. Rats are still
pigeons.
cool. There is great bird watching in New York City, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's as obvious as young stags.
No,
Banging heads
100%.
together.
I ain't never seen a wild deer that's
Really?
alive.
Really?
Oh yeah, roadkill.
Interesting.
But
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
wild ones.
Yeah, they're around, dude. Yeah, they're definitely around. But yeah, so it kind of just changed the trajectory of my life. I got back. I had to really reevaluate what I wanted to do. I decided to go study science. Did science for a year. In that process, I was like, what am I going to do with this? Realized that I like practical stuff. I'm like, what's a practical application for science? It's like, and how do I do stuff with wildlife as well? Ended up deferring that science degree, going to work in a veterinary hospital for a little while. Decided I loved that, and then just started my journey.
Right.
Went back to uni for a bit to retrain. Did a year of vet tech so I could get into veterinary science. Got into veterinary science, and here we are.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
went
it's
to
a big
America
journey,
to like
find
study
myself. Most people
music.
go to India.
Really?
I went to Yosemite.
Yeah. I think look, finding that the whole finding yourself thing. It's very to India, America. Either way, the point being is that you now like birds. Yeah, and you're a vet nurse. Soon to be vet nurse. Sorry.
I feel bad calling myself a vet nurse because I'm a terrible vet nurse. I work in a vet nurse capacity in the wildlife hospital. I'm really a student veterinarian.
Yeah,
I do a lot of nursing in the hospital.
But you're good enough though to be teaching people. You did say you were teaching people today.
I was training
people.
I felt so sorry for them. I'm a terrible person to train them in that ward. But yeah, it's great. I really love working in the wildlife hospital.
Yeah.
It just combines all the things that I love, and I get to interact with wild animals and impact their lives on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. What have you ever had like a breakout? Like
breakout?
Yeah, breakout where there's like
ringworm. What do you mean?
Yeah, like not a disease, not syphilis or chlamydia or anything like that.
Yeah.
When you had to lock down.
Oh, there's this
the
one.
gates.
There was this one time I got a really hot.
Oh, not again.
No, that was on purpose. That was on purpose.
Yeah, no, as in not again. Yeah.
Killed an antelope.
Oh, well, now I'm never going to see a wild deer again.
Sorry, a breakout. Explain that.
like a prisoner breakout. Like you had a piece of wildlife that was meant to be somewhere, and then when you went to look at the wildlife in the cage,
you mean in the hospital? Right. Like a Jumanji type scenario where like I open the door and then all the wild animals are just running down the hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Specifically like Jumanji. Yes.
Sometimes at night when I'm doing night shifts and I'm like, I need to release all these animals, I just feel like doing the ET and just like, the frogs in ET, just letting them all go.
I can't say it.
No, it doesn't matter. That's an esoteric reference. Look, things. things sometimes, you know, manage to open cages and stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever, not
No
while I've worked there,
monkeys.
nothing's ever escaped.
Yeah.
No monkeys. Sometimes, like, things arrive in cardboard boxes. I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah, true that. I've seen a fair few cardboard boxes coming through at the entrance there, yeah.
And the thing is that parrots are really good at tearing through cardboard. So sometimes you might get a box and there's just a head of a cockatoo poking out. It's pretty funny. And it's just like, here's Johnny.
He's pulling through.
Yeah.
Damn, the cockatoos, they've been messing up my front tree. They've been dropping branches on my car. Instead of just chewing maybe at a thicker part, they decide to just rip off a small part of the tree and drop it on my car.
Yeah, they're having fun.
Yeah, well, it's not for me.
You should talk to your friend Sampy.
Yeah, can you please communicate to these parrots?
Yeah, she's like the bird whisperer, parrot whisperer. So
She got those sorts of abilities.
Apparently, yeah.
She kept that secret from me.
Really? Like Dr. Dolittle style stuff, man. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, no, she told me about the wombat that you guys had and a brolga coming in.
Oh, really? Those weren't patients.
No, they were
zoo.
Exactly, and you guys just.
I wasn't there. I wasn't invited. I didn't see it. Yeah, I was pretty bummed. I want to cuddle a wombat. They look really huggable, don't they?
They're very staunch.
Yeah.
They're very staunch.
Just ground koalas, aren't they? They look just like a koala on the ground.
Yeah. Except a little less cute and more knock you out sort of vibe. Like the bouncer at a club.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the vibe I get.
Interesting
and square
analogy.
poos, right?
Square poos also like bouncers at clubs. I'm sure.
Just
you do enough steroids.
Then stuff's changing shape. That's for sure. Like I've never seen wild wombats. I have the only time. Well, again, live ones. I've never seen live wombats. I went back. Grade 7. I went down to the snow fields or whatever. The whole Canberra trip things.
Yeah, like Kosciuszko.
Yeah, did you do a trip when you were for
Not
your
at
grade
school.
7s?
No.
Oh, okay.
My school didn't take us to Mount Kosciuszko.
Damn.
Isn't that a, like interstate flight?
Yeah, that is 100%.
No,
I'm pretty sure it's America.
Ski trip.
Yeah, ski trip. Yeah, that's where I went.
never did that.
Oh, damn. But I was in a double-decker bus. Got the very front seat. Best day of my life. And I saw like 10 to 15
Dead
KO'd wombats.
That was the best day of your life.
That part wasn't. Well, see it up the front. It was amazing. Absolutely, it was really.
That was the best day. And then I saw 10 KO'd wombats. This is a great gag.
I'm gonna do like a safety thing for that with like an extra stick or something. I don't know, like a lock, like some safety thing.
You could just take the actual thing out.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Look at you say you weren't smart. You're freaking switched on.
Why did I say I wasn't smart?
I know when Pubble Bonks or something. You're like, stuff.
True.
I don't know that.
No. Yeah.
So we've gone through the whole trip with
my
frogs.
whole journey. You now know my whole life.
Yeah,
from
which is
start to end.
Yeah.
Hopefully not the end. But.
No. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I don't want to know the end. With this band, I'd like to just touch on that a little
My
more.
band?
Yeah, your band.
Oh,
That was just.
I slipped up there.
You slipped up there.
Yeah.
You don't want to talk about band.
Not really.
More so like musically speaking.
Yeah.
What did you play? Like you said, you play guitar. Was styled? Did you do jazz?
No, look, I think that my musical journey is very similar to my wildlife journey in that I've got a very bipolar. Crap. Oh, sorry. Oh.
That's good. It's good.
Can that stay in?
Yeah.
It's the other C word.
No, that one you can't.
No, it's very similar to my wildlife journey in that it's like very thin and superficial, very spread out. I like broad interests. I'm not really interested in having one solid specific knowledge or skill. I've just never been that person. I envy those people at times. That's just not how my brain works.
Well, it's very hard. It's like there's so much to know. Like I don't know if you would agree, but like trying to find that thing like out of everything there is to look into, all the scientific names. Then you've got the frogs, then you've got the cats, dogs, blobs, everything, algae.
Algae. Oh,
and then bacteria.
Yeah, bioluminescent.
Yeah.
phytoplankton.
Yeah, that is really cool when it's up on the beach. Beautiful
I love
stuff.
bioluminescence. I think
Tastes good.
Does it? No, I'm surely not.
Not when it's intended. I never have I drunk salt water.
What's
intentionally.
interesting? It's there's this this is again completely tangential, but there's this bioluminescent protein called aquarin. I think that's what it's called. I haven't looked up that word since I was like 12 years old.
Okay.
But it's this chemical that's produced by deep sea cephalopods.
Yeah.
I think, right? Again, this is probably all wrong. You're welcome to cut this out. But there's this product, and it glows blue, right? And the same uncle that got me into fungi sent me this sachet of this protein, of this powder, in the mail, probably in the 90s. So,
damn.
And it was a synthesized version of this chemical that caused these squid to turn blue. And it had a little note with it that was like, "This is aquarin. It's triggered by calcium." Right, so when you put calcium with this powder, it glows blue. So what you can do is you can put it in a glass of water. You put the powder in there, and then you put a bit of milk, and then as soon as you put the milk in, it goes really blue.
And you drink it?
No, you don't drink it.
Good. That's because it sounded like you're making like a tea
well,
bag in there. Sort of thing. It came in a sachet. I'm drinking it.
But in small letters at the very bottom, he says, the other thing is that there's enough calcium in urine to make it go blue. It's like, so just put a little bit in the toilet before your parents go. And so as a kid, I'd like put some powder into the toilet and wait for my parents to go to the toilet and then go, and then the bowl would start glowing blue as soon as they started doing blue.
That's freaking dope.
Yeah. Cool uncle.
Yeah,
So,
your uncle sounds mad as.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah. Anyway, that was bioluminescence. What was your question?
I don't even know, but it's this bioluminescence stuff. We were
Yeah.
talking about salt snorting. No, we weren't.
No, you were talking about having a very specific area of knowledge, and I
Yeah,
do envy
yeah.
those people. I think it is a lot of work, but I think that it's, for a lot of things, it's more valuable. You need people who just want to study one group of beetles. You know, you want those kind of people in science and in nature and stuff. And I'm just never going to be that person. I'm going to be the kind of person that starts a bird watching podcast on a whim and then gets like sucked into it, or like a frog podcast, or, you know, doing veterinary science. And the only area in veterinary science I could ever possibly work in is wildlife, because there's variety. Like I don't even think I could be a bird. Like, I love working with birds in a wild capacity. I don't think I could only do that.
Yeah.
I need the variety of not really knowing what animal's going to come in. Oh, could it be an echidna? Oh, I might get a phascogale.
Yeah,
I might get, I might get a frog.
So the lack of monotony is what's keeping you tied down.
Absolutely.
Right on.
Yeah, it's just having that. Yeah. And look, I like structure as well.
Yes.
But I like a bit of,
organized
psychedelia
chaos
around it. Yeah, organized chaos. Yeah.
Right on.
So I like the fact that my skills have structure, but it's the work.
Yeah, the implementation of your skills is
diverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And continually changing.
And so, it's me.
Right. Yeah, well, with your podcast,
What is it called?
Yeah.
Have we even spoken about the podcast?
No, I don't think we've mentioned it. We talked about it before.
Yeah.
It was now I've had that's a
Death by Birding.
Yeah, I wanted to say it was so cool. Death by Birding. Like, that's such a cool name.
Yeah. Is it? I was trying to think.
It's very unique. It's very get your attention.
Yeah.
And then you want to like, okay, why am I dying from birds?
And then you Google it, and all that comes up are just lots of articles about birds dying.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what's killing all of our birds? It's like, this is cool.
Not podcast, but yeah.
That's great. That's really cool. And then the other thing is if I wanted to, I was thinking other podcasts, when they have sponsors, it's like, to get 20% off, you put, this word and then 20.
Yeah.
It's like, what would my word be for 20% off? Is
Right.
either death or birds.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why you chose the name?
No,
for the 20%.
that's why I shouldn't have chosen that. I should have thought of something better. Maybe it'd be, anyway.
DB Bird, Death by
I'm not
Birds.
doing it for the money, man.
No.
It's like,
Short term, and long term. It's because you're a good soul.
Podcasting, famously loads of money.
Yeah, I've heard all the billionaires that I've seen driving around.
Yeah. There's definitely not too many podcasts.
No. There's only a couple hundred, I think.
Yeah. Yours is good because you do video, which I keep forgetting about. But it looks really pro.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of an extra one. It's well, thank you. Look, thanks.
This is nice. I'm in a studio. This is amazing.
Yes, it's
have
my
you
brand new
seen
studio.
what my studio looks like for my podcast?
I have taken a couple looks.
It's my dining table.
It's
And one microphone.
I've
One
seen that.
bad, dodgy, one dodgy microphone in the middle of a table.
But your audio, honestly, I don't think your audio sounds that bad.
Yeah, it's not as nice as this.
Well, maybe so, but it still sounded pretty good. Like you had one mic, you're set up, you're having a chat, you're able to pick up, and the distance that you guys were away as well. Like it turned out all right, I think, for what you had.
Yeah, and look, you kind of alluded to this before the podcast about why I chose that setup and stuff, and probably only 40 to 60%. I'm not going to commit to either side of that 50. Is pure laziness. But the other thing is that I didn't want the podcast to get in the way of the conversation.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that makes sense because this feels great, but I was just really keen to make it loose.
Yeah,
and I just wanted to talk rubbish with some friends to start with.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, at least if I just put one microphone in, they won't even notice it half the time.
Yeah, okay.
It didn't work. I should have done this. This is way better.
Well, it's
if anything, I'm just like, am I getting audio?
Yeah, well, I was very interested to find out about that because like with that mic, what did much research go into like the kind of mic, or did you have some people? Well, you did have that pre-start in audio, that degree in audio,
which should have gone into getting gear like this, but instead, I like most things that I do, I created the podcast on like a whim, very spontaneously, committed myself to a lot of work when I was already overcommitted. And then when people started listening, realized that I had to keep making it. Yeah. So, which is great. It's good motivation.
Yes, that is true. The people keep you going because you've it seems like you have a fair bit of interaction with your listeners. In regard with the podcast. You're up to episode 10. Yeah,
I think 10 will be the next one.
Oh, the next one. Yeah.
Well, I release mini episodes as well. So
okay.
there are mini episodes where it's just me rambling for 25 minutes or something. Because if one podcast isn't enough, like a second podcast is great. Yeah,
100%. No extra editing, no nothing. Sure. Well, because I love the I guess the community that you're kind of building up. I really do like that with what although it was on a whim, how the style of the name, the general interest that you have of it, and then also bringing people in that aren't really interested in birding, but you just to like have that chat around it, and then go out and you just hang out with people, and you create connections, and then and that also how you run it. Rubs off, I think, on your listeners a little bit, and then you got that badge as well, like the new artwork that you had.
Yeah, the artwork's
That's
cool.
So
Jace Harper
dope.
did that, who does the artwork for like June Rats and stuff. So he's an artist that in King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and who's another one, Lime Cordial. Like he's done artwork for a bunch of big Australian bands. Oh, okay. And so I got him to do the artwork for this. Right. It also helps that he's a mate that lives pretty close to me.
Right. I was going to say, did you just like call him up? I was like, out of all the other guys, why did you? Friends.
He actually loves wildlife. Like he loves wildlife.
As
and we got to chatting, and I was like, dude, I'd love you to design. And he actually designed my Pobblebonks and Cunningungan stuff before he'd done this. Go check that artwork is also sick.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of it.
It's me riding a frog, which is
dope. Right. Yeah, on the shirts. You had the shirts.
I got t-shirts.
Did you do merch?
So the merch for Pobblebonks was Daniel and I both riding on big frogs
out in space.
Yeah, like with like space mushrooms and stuff.
Yeah.
And the one, this is an owl that's like taloning me. So I realized that the theme is just me with really big animals, or maybe it's just little me with regular sized animals. I don't know, but it's basically just cartoon
What is
versions of me with unusual either big or little animals. I don't know, regular or big, whatever.
There's
you
a
like.
lot of sizes involved here.
I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out. I think the fact that the mushrooms in the Pobblebonks and Cunningungens are also big means that this is just a very small version of me.
Yes.
Interacting with lots of animals. It's
Yeah,
cool.
or you've had the shrooms
Am
and
I
now you're
overthinking it?
smaller.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
shrooms, you're just
Maybe it's a
breathing in the
trip.
shroom gas.
It's a trip,
It is.
yeah.
It does look like that sort of vibe. It's like if
Yeah.
you I've never done shroom, but if you had, and if I
Yeah.
did, I reckon that's probably what you would feel
I've
like.
never done mushrooms either.
Yeah, I
but
feel like it's a safe bet not to.
Yeah, I look whatever. Each their own. It's just I feel like I wanted to do with the artworks. I just wanted to do something different, and I think birding and bird watching has a very stale kind of persona.
It does. I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah, in society's perception of birding is just like stale old men with binoculars, which I'll probably be one day.
I'm picking that up a little bit.
If I'm lucky. And there are lots of, and I almost hate saying that because I don't want to take it away from those people who are old men who love birding. That's okay. That's totally okay.
You can be old, or you've got no other option but to be old. But
Yeah.
it's good for you.
You can be an old white man bird watching. That's okay. But there are more people in the community than that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they were necessarily getting represented in the way that they should. Now, instead, I'm just a young white man doing it. So that's cool. Like, really opening up the...
Yeah, 100% it is.
Well, look, my hope is to get guests on, open up open up
The biodiversity in people.
biodiversity in the community and the biodiversity. That's right. Yeah.
It's the diversity.
Yeah, but just showing a different perspective in bird watching and birding, and showing that there are lots of people, and there are young people who are really into it, and they don't necessarily have to be the best birders in the world. They can just be casual observers, people that just like looking at birds in their backyard. They don't have to be keeping a list or anything. And what I've found is, while interviewing people like, I had Judith Hoyle on, who was like the ex-convener of BirdLife Southern Queensland.
Right.
World-class birder, really, really good birder.
You know the guy with the long hair?
No, Judith is like a cute little old lady.
Oh,
from
no, missed that
England.
one.
She probably hate being described like that. She's awesome. I love Judith to bits. She's the one that spoke about Toondah Harbour and stuff. She's protesting against the development of Toondah Harbour.
Right.
Which, if you don't know about, look it up.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But look it up. We'd be here for another few hours if we spoke about that. But please, look up Toondah Harbour if you live in
Tuna or tuna?
Toondah, Toondah.
Right.
Toondah Harbour.
Thank goodness you spelt that.
Yeah. Look it up and Google it and find out what's going on. If you're in Southeast Queensland, particularly, but it's a global issue, really. But yeah, from someone like Judith, who is a world-class birder, it's like probably globally recognized as being a good birder, to other guests who, like Jack and Luke from the Violent Soho, who came on, and they like birds, but they're not birders. And that's I love introducing those people to this community. And being like, you know what? It doesn't matter if you don't know as much as a hardcore birder. We need
still have fun.
We don't need 2% of people who really, really love and know everything about nature. We don't need them and then everyone else not knowing much. We need we need 60 to 70% of people who all know a little bit and care enough to do something, and that's what I want to pursue. That's what I want to push.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you have enjoyed this episode. If you have any suggestions on guests that I should have on or topics that I should cover, head over to www.thebigsmall.au and let me know what you think. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode.